He stood tall beneath the grey London skies, not as a prince shielded by palace walls, but as a father, a husband, a man in search of something more elusive than a crown: safety and dignity for his family. Prince Harry's voice has long been a clarion call for change, but in recent weeks, that voice carried a sharper edge, tinged with frustration, even pain, as he spoke out about the latest legal blow in his ongoing fight to restore police protection in the United Kingdom. After stepping away from royal duties and beginning a new chapter across the Atlantic, Harry never imagined he'd one day have to justify his right to security, especially in the land where he was born and raised. But that is exactly where the Duke of Sussex finds himself now. Locked in a courtroom battle, not just with faceless officials, but with the very institution that once claimed to protect him. The High Court's ruling struck hard. The Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures, better known as RAVEC, had previously stripped Harry of the police security he once received as a senior royal. He challenged this downgrade, arguing that the threats against him hadn't vanished just because he'd chosen a different life. But Sir Geoffrey Voss, the Master of the Rolls, ruled against him, reinforcing the decision to treat him as a private citizen rather than a royal in need of special protection. Harry, though, wasn't just battling bureaucracy. He was contending with something more personal, something closer to home. In a candid interview following the judgment, Harry peeled back the curtain on a process he believes was quietly influenced by the very family he distanced himself from. He pointed directly to the royal household, alleging that his father's closest advisors, particularly Sir Clive Alderton, King Charles III's private secretary, were involved in the decisions that left him and his family vulnerable. The sting in his words wasn't hidden. "There is a lot of control and ability in my father's hands," he said, his voice steady, but the emotion unmistakable. To Harry, this wasn't simply about policy, it was about betrayal. He didn't name King Charles outright as an adversary, but his meaning was clear. Had his father chosen to, the situation could have been resolved. It wasn't just a missed opportunity. It was a deliberate silence. It's a silence that echoes, especially in moments where Harry's concerns cut to the core: his family's safety. He spoke not in abstractions but in chilling detail. Neo-Nazis, extremists, terror groups like Al-Qaeda. These weren't far-off shadows. These were real, documented threats. And Harry believed, deeply, that the decisions around his security weren't based on threat assessments but on politics, on status, on the ever-complex dance of royal image and power. For a man who once served on the front lines in Afghanistan, who has walked into war zones and emerged scarred but standing, it was not the danger that rattled him. It was the idea that his safety and that of his wife and children was now negotiable. What's harder, perhaps, is the feeling of isolation, of being singled out. Harry didn't mince words. He described the security downgrade as unjust and the result of being deliberately pushed away. The royal family, in his eyes, had chosen to distance themselves, not just emotionally, but physically, stripping him of the protections that once came with his title. It wasn't just about moving continents. It was about being cut adrift. And in the courtroom, that rejection took legal form. His lawyer had argued passionately that his safety required reconsideration. But the court responded with cool logic. His situation, while regrettable, wasn't legally exceptional. He had stepped back from his role. The decision not to afford him police bodyguards, they said, was not malicious, but simply procedural. Still, for Harry, procedure cannot explain away the deeper wound. He isn't just challenging a legal framework. He's challenging an ethos, a worldview, one in which individuals who choose to live beyond the royal script are treated as disposable, even when they continue to carry the same threats, the same enemies. His battle is about more than armed guards. It's about principle and legacy. The court's rejection didn't close the door on Harry's efforts. Far from it. He's now taking his case to the political realm, preparing a formal letter to Home Secretary Yvette Cooper. In it, he's calling for a full review of the RAVEC decision-making process. For Harry, it's not just a personal matter. It's about reforming how the UK evaluates risk and protects those whose lives remain in the public eye, whether or not they wear a crown. Despite the fire in his fight, Harry's heart remains tethered to family, at least to the idea of family. In that same interview, he shared a rare, unguarded moment. "I would love reconciliation with my family," he admitted, but the hope was tempered with sorrow. Time, he acknowledged, is fleeting. His father's advancing age loomed in his thoughts, a reminder that life offers no guarantees, not even to princes. And so, the very thing that Harry wants most, peace, safety, connection, is entangled in the very system that seems to keep him at arm's length. The strain has deepened the divide not just with King Charles, but with Prince William as well. The two brothers, once inseparable, now walk starkly different paths. And for Harry, the silence from his family in the face of his security concerns speaks volumes. It's not just about future visits to the UK. It's about whether he can ever return at all. As things stand, Harry has said he won't risk bringing Meghan or their children, Archie and Lilibet, back to Britain under the current circumstances. That declaration lands heavy, not just as a statement of logistics, but as an emotional line in the sand. His homeland remains dear to him, but love for a country doesn't erase fear for a family. And so the question lingers in the air. What happens when home no longer feels safe? What happens when the place that raised you, the place where your roots run deep, no longer feels like a sanctuary? For Prince Harry, that question isn't rhetorical. It's personal. It shapes every decision he makes, every step he takes on British soil. His ongoing dispute over police protection is more than a headline or a legal footnote. It's the latest chapter in a larger, deeply human story of a man attempting to hold onto his identity while protecting the people he loves. And for Harry, the stakes have never been higher. The impact of the court's ruling extends far beyond the courtroom walls. For Harry and Meghan, it has cast a long shadow over their relationship with the UK. The security issue has become a barrier not just to travel but to healing. Without the assurance of protection, the idea of bringing their children to the land of their heritage feels not only risky but heartbreaking. They've built a life in California, but Britain is still part of who they are. Yet every rejection, every unanswered plea, makes that connection feel a little more tenuous. And it's not just the physical distance that stings. It's the silence. Harry has been open about feeling excluded, even forgotten, by the family that once surrounded him in gilded halls and royal duties. His security concerns have largely been met with quiet from the palace. No public statements, no signs of intervention. And in that silence, Harry hears a message louder than words. You're on your own now. Still, he refuses to give up. When he speaks of reconciliation, it's not with bitterness, but with hope. A fragile, flickering hope that maybe, someday, bridges can be rebuilt. That time can soften old wounds. That family, fractured though it may be, is still worth fighting for. But he's clear-eyed, too. He understands the weight of what's been lost and the challenges of reclaiming it. In the meantime, Harry continues to stand his ground, not just for himself, but for others like him, those caught between royal expectation and personal freedom. His call for transparency in security decisions is part of a larger push to reform how Britain balances tradition with reality. He's asking the government and the public to rethink what it means to protect someone whose fame doesn't vanish just because they no longer wear a uniform or wave from a palace balcony. To many watching around the world, Harry's struggle resonates. It's a modern tale, one where duty collides with independence, where love and safety clash with old structures and rigid protocols. And for millions who've left behind family expectations, chosen new paths, or faced consequences for defying convention, his story feels familiar. Still, there's something uniquely poignant about seeing a prince plead for the right to protect his wife and children. It flips the fairy tale on its head. The prince isn't rescuing anyone from a tower. He's asking not to be left alone in the dark. What makes the situation even more complex is the constitutional tightrope it walks. Royal insiders have noted that it would have been improper for King Charles to step in while the case was under legal review. But that technicality hasn't stopped public speculation or emotional fallout. After all, Harry isn't just another citizen. He's the king's son. And for many, that relationship comes with expectations of loyalty, protection, and love. When those expectations go unmet, the disappointment is sharp. And for Harry, That disappointment is layered, rooted not only in security protocols, but in years of unresolved tension and estrangement. His departure from royal life wasn't just about the press, or even safety. It was about feeling unheard, unseen, unwanted. Yet here he is, still hoping, still fighting not just for security, but for understanding, for acknowledgement, for some sign that his life, his family, still matter to the institution he once served with pride. There's a quiet resilience in that, a refusal to walk away completely, even after all that's been said and done. In interviews, Harry has described his father as a man of great power, someone who could, if he chose, change the outcome with a single word. That belief isn't just political, it's personal. It reflects a son's faith in his father, however bruised. A belief that behind the titles and the crown, there still exists a bond worth salvaging. But time is not standing still. Harry's comment, "I don't know how long my father has left," wasn't morbid. It was raw, honest, a reminder that even royals are bound by time, by age, by mortality. And in that awareness lies a truth. There may not be endless chances to mend what's been broken. That reality adds urgency to every word Harry speaks. It turns legal decisions into emotional milestones. Because this isn't just about whether a former working royal gets police protection. It's about whether a family torn apart by duty, expectation, and media frenzy can find its way back to one another before it's too late. So where does that leave us? With a story still unfolding. With a prince who's chosen love over legacy, but who still bears the scars of both. With a royal family navigating a new age, where tradition clashes daily with public scrutiny, and where the old rules don't always protect the people they were meant to serve. Harry's fight may not change everything. The legal ruling stands. The distance between him and his family remains. But in speaking out, in challenging what he sees as unjust, he's done something undeniably powerful. He's kept the conversation alive. And maybe that's the point, because sometimes change doesn't come all at once. Sometimes it begins with a single voice refusing to be silenced, a father demanding safety, a son asking to be seen, a man reminding the world that even a prince, at his core, just wants to protect the ones he loves. Whatever comes next, one thing is certain. This isn't the end of the story. It's only the next chapter, and the world is still watching, still hoping for resolution, for reconciliation, for the kind of ending that real-life fairy tales rarely offer but always strive for. One built not on crowns and castles, but on truth, courage, and the unbreakable bonds of family.